Well, this is the culmination of all of our voices that we've been working on for over a decade. The fact that American companies are using ingredients that are more poisonous here in the United States and better in other countries, safer ingredients. And now President Trump, Secretary Kennedy, and the FDA Commissioner, Dr. Marty Makary, are putting a stake in the ground. They're saying you can no longer do this.
They use beetroot red, paprika extract in order to make the colors in the Fruit Loops. But I'm curious, obviously the reason that we have not seen any budge in all of this is that these food companies have very strong lobbyists who have pushed to maintain these standards in our foods. So how are you going to get them to stop? And won't they push back on this? How long do you think this is going to take? And are they going to go along?
They are going to have to go along because we have leadership like we've never had before. The fact that President Trump invited a MAHA mom like myself is the first time in history. I was a delegate for President Obama for 2 terms, and I was never invited to the White House to talk about these type of issues. And it's absolutely incredible, the leadership we're seeing. And the food companies see the writing on the wall. They know that Americans have learned the truth about these dyes, and they have to remove them. American companies can no longer get away with selling one set of ingredients here and another in other countries. It's unfair. We've seen the chronic disease rates skyrocket where we spend the most on healthcare, but we have the worst health outcomes. Now we're going to start to address those issues with meaningful reform at the FDA. Today is a day I can say the FDA is no longer asleep at the wheel, and it's absolutely incredible.
All right.
I have taught them the truth about artificial food dyes because our government was doing nothing to protect them from these harmful ingredients. Now we are entering a new era, an era where we don't need to worry about artificial food dyes on the frosting of a birthday cake, the breakfast cereals served at schools, our children's Halloween bucket or Easter basket, the chips and the sports drinks being served after a game. This was the effort of so many incredible people, many of whom are in this room today. Thank you. Thank you for being loud. Thank you for coming together with me on this issue because you made your voices heard.
The has conducted a number of studies raising concerns about the correlation between petroleum-based synthetic dyes and several health conditions, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, cancer, genomic disruption, GI issues, as I've seen in the hospital, and allergic reactions. FDA stands for food. Now, there's no one ingredient that accounts for the child chronic disease epidemic. And let's be honest, taking petroleum-based food dyes out of the food supply is not a silver bullet that will instantly make America's children healthy. But it is one important step. This administration is not interested in continuing down the path of doing the same old things as we watch our nation's children get sicker.
Warrior for America's children, RFK Jr. For over 20 years, ex-Vanieri, who's been an extraordinary leader, and then Marty Makary. I'm so grateful that you agreed to join the administration, and Jay Bhattacharya. Will you guys come up here? And these are a broad category, the ones that Marty mentioned, like ADHD, the neurological disorders, ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics, Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, and autism. All of these are injuries that I never heard of when I was a kid. They were not part of the nomenclature. They weren't. So about a month ago, to meet with the food companies, I was talking with my staff about these petroleum-based dyes, and I said, if they want to add petroleum, if they want to eat petroleum, they ought to add it themselves at home. But they shouldn't be feeding it to the rest of us. And we're going to get rid of every ingredient and additive in school in food that we can legally address. One of the problems is that the industry, which all of these industries, cast a dark shadow historically over this agency. And there's so many conflicts that we are now systematically eliminating. That has allowed them to suppress the science. There's shockingly few studies, even on food dyes, and on all these other ingredients as well. And Jay Bhattacharya, who is here and who is running, the director of NIH, is now narrowly targeting these kind of food additives for scientific study, so that one by one we can start eliminating them where they can. Where we did not by changing our diet, providing medications to treat our kids, and they get medicated, and that's the only solution. And, I would point out that there is part of the etiology of these diseases is a kind of media malpractice, mass psychosis that has our media not talking about this. And one of the possible reasons for that is the amount of money that's coming from the pharmaceutical companies into our media and from these food companies for the advertising